Welcome in, everybody. It is Biscuits and SEC Live. It is Wednesday, February 25th. And we are back with another big show for you. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're trying to get our streams up on Twitter. StreamYard still having issues there, but we'll hopefully have those up momentarily, at least on our Twitter. We're going to talk about the Joey Aguilar situation. I think went how we thought, but big domino to fall, so to speak, at least for Tennessee. Maybe touch on a little bit of SEC hoops, but then kind of what's next for the Vols, and got us thinking about SEC quarterback rooms for next year and just which ones are interesting, which ones are worth keeping an eye on during spring ball, as obviously Tennessee is now with the news. How you doing tonight, boss man?
I am doing good. I need a haircut like you. You got a fresh updo going on right now. I'm in solidarity with the United States hockey team, the gold medal hockey team.
True.
That took down Canada. So I got a little bit of hockey hair going on right now, and probably will have to get a cut here soon. But anyway, it is good to be here tonight. Looking forward to talking a little bit of football, some QB rooms, looking ahead to 2026, and what's going on with Joey Aguilar, especially starting there in Knoxville with kind of what that QB room is going to look like. So looking forward to it. Going to be a fun show. Thank you to everybody for joining us.
Absolutely. So before we get into it, of course, you know the drill. Newsletter down below. Please sign up. Went out today, as usual, our off-season Wednesday cadence. We tag teamed it today, so you got to hear a little bit from Boss Man, a little bit from me, and we got it sent out. So, again, it's free. Just keeps everybody up to date on the SEC news, notes, goings-on, happenings around the league, as well as the country, and just things that are impacting college sports at large. So would appreciate it if you'd give us a shot there. You can always unsubscribe if it's not something you dig. So moving forward, start the show. Joey Aguilar denied another year. Again, I think this went how we thought it would. So essentially, if you haven't been keeping track of this, I don't really blame you. There's been a billion NCAA eligibility court cases. It's hard to keep up, but he spent 3 years in junior college and was trying to, 3 or 4, I can't remember, but was trying to basically sue the NCAA and say, those should not count against my eligibility. He's only been at a, NCAA sanctioned school, university for 3 years. So he's trying to get that sort of last year, which would have been his 7th year in college, and he was denied. So I said, kind of went how we thought. Tennessee now moves forward without him. What were your thoughts on this ruling? And then we can kind of, parlay that into what's going on with Tennessee long-term or short-term, 2026.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting for Tennessee. We can talk about that in a minute. But the Aguilar piece of this, I'm going to miss him in Knoxville. I mean, I really enjoyed watching him play last year, and think had he been able to stay in Knoxville for another year, it would have been interesting to watch that with this Vols team, him in Heupel offense in year 2, et cetera. He was a gamer, and, I enjoyed it, his time in Knoxville. So to see it come to an end is a little bit tough, but at the same time, I think now we've got back-to-back rulings with the Trinidad Chambliss ruling and with the Aguilar ruling that I think the judge made the right call in this case. I mean, 25, like at some point we got to draw the line of like, go get a job, buddy, or go to the NFL, like try your hand at the NFL. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the meme is go get a job, here's a job application. Like, but at least you got to move on. You know what I mean? You can't stay in college forever. We're kind of sick of the Van Wilders. The COVID stuff is over, right? We're 6 years past the COVID stuff. So the COVID rule where you got an extra year and all that. I'm a little confused because I did think that the NCAA ruled that, those years wouldn't count against you, but maybe that never went through. Like we try to keep track. We write the newsletter. We do our darndest to keep track of this stuff, and it's still hard at times to remember and keep track of all of it. So at the end of the day, I did think that this was the right ruling. It's time to move on. You've been in college for a while. You're going to be 25 years old. This would be 7th year, I believe, of college football for Aguilar.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 6th year for Trinidad Chambliss, and it was an injury.
Mm-hmm.
Different circumstances. It's not really comparing apples to apples with Aguilar and with Chambliss. Again, though, you got to bring up like TJ Finley. No clue how that kid's allowed to keep playing, but somebody like Joey Aguilar is not, right? That makes absolutely no sense. So there are these oddball kind of things and rulings and ways that the NCAA goes about things. But if we're just looking at this case individually with blinders on, I think the right ruling came down.
Yeah, I do too. And, the one thing too, I'll just add on this that I think oftentimes gets lost because, as you said, Joey Aguilar, fun guy to watch, had a pretty solid season last year. And if you're a Tennessee fan or just a fan of football, it's like, yeah, I want this guy to come back, right? Unless you root for a rival, it's like, why wouldn't I? He's pretty solid. He chucks the ball downfield all day and runs a fun offense. But I think what gets lost oftentimes with any of this eligibility stuff, especially post-COVID, is ultimately, as you said, you need true guardrails here, not just because that's how you function as a, sports league, but also because it lets guys come up the ranks behind him, right? Yes. Joey Aguilar, let's say he got this ruling ruled in his favor. All right, well, here's a 25-year-old who's been in college for now 7 years, who's taking the place of a high school kid, another JUCO kid who's trying to make division. You go down the list of guys that are missing out on their opportunity because we're extending the eligibility clock for so many guys, and it's just not. It's really not fair in a lot of cases, and so. Long term, again, whatever this shakes out with the NCAA and college football and the rules that they're going to come up with, collective bargaining, whatever it is, there's got to be some kind of cap, right? Because you can't just continue to let these guys beat you in court and gain extra eligibility for all these myriad of reasons, because then you never replenish from the lower ranks. And I think, there's some guys in the recruiting space that voice this often because of the COVID year that caused so much of this. But, it's impacted a lot of guys, again, whether you're a high schooler or any other lower level of football and you're trying to make your way up. Well, the reality is a lot of these roster spots have been clogged up by guys who were 24, 25, 26 over the last handful of years because these eligibility cases and COVID and whatnot have been going in their favor. And I think this is a good example of JUCO counts against you. We can't open this Pandora's box and allow you to just go play JUCO for as long as you want, and then you start your eligibility clock. Like, that just can't happen. So it stinks for Aguilar. I liked watching him play. It was the right decision.
Yeah, I agree. One interesting thing, like thread to pull out here, is this is going to go back to, we still need Congress or a governing body or something to step in, or I think it's probably gonna have to be Congress at the end of the day, because they're gonna have to step in and give guardrails and give maybe antitrust exemption or something, so that the NCAA or a body like it, whatever comes in the coming years, can put these guardrails up, can put rules in place, and then enforce them. And because I do think we're coming to a point where, if we're really talking about, free market and money and all that stuff, which is already in college football, at some point, and this has kind of happened, around the margins in some of these cases, at some point, some of these kids and their lawyers are going to say, this is a free market. This is basically pro sports at this point, amateur, right? Pro. It's not amateur. It is semi-pro sports at this point. So if we're in a free market, you cannot cap my potential earnings.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, like if I'm Joey Aguilar and I really wanted to press the matter here, right, and say, I want to go back to Tennessee. I want to play at Tennessee. I don't want to go to the NFL. Then him and his lawyers could go back and say, you're capping my potential earnings. You have no right to do that.
Right.
And I'm going to earn more at Tennessee than I'm going to earn more playing for the Tennessee Titans as a fourth string or practice squad player or, whatever it is. So we're going to get to a point where that that is going to be the one that breaks the dam. Whoever ends up getting to that point or deciding to sue in that way, because then you really could have Van Wilders who were like, to heck with it, I'm going to play 8, 9, 10 years in college because that is where I'm going to make the most money. Let's just use an example. I know Diego Pavia doesn't want to do this, but Diego Pavia, if he wanted to stay in college for 10 years, he would be one of the best players in college football year in and year out, constantly, over and over again. And he probably would have a better career that way than he's ever going to have in the NFL, right? Maybe I'm wrong. He could prove me wrong, but that's the most likely scenario for somebody like a Diego Pavia, right? So anyway, that's kind of pulling at that thread of like, that's probably where we're going. At some point, somebody is going to challenge it in that way to say, you can't cap my earnings. I want to go back. And that is going to be the question of like, okay, where do we go from there?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So this is sort of a temporary thing, but for now, I think they made the right call. And like you said, until something else happens and the NCAA gets some help or these leagues branch off and, collective bargain their way into their own set of rules, I think that's coming. And I hope it's a long ways away, but I think it's coming. Did want to get to this, though. I mean, Polar Knight's really pumping you up tonight. You're looking good. Always wants to dance a two-step when Polar Knight sees you. So, you got to admire the hockey hair and the beard is looking good. So,
well, we could do a two-step on Disney on Ice, Polar Knights. How about that? Because that's what I'm feeling like. I'm feeling like Jack Hughes with this hair right now.
Yep.
Got to get a haircut. But I did it in solidarity with USA men's hockey. I didn't really, but then, the Olympics came up and I just still had long hair. I was like, that's actually why I'm doing it. Solidarity with the USA men's hockey team and women's hockey team, gold, back to back. So
right on Canada's head.
That's right. Take that. That, Maple Leafs.
Exactly. Well, let's parlay this, this conversation. Obviously, Tennessee's moving on, or rather Aguilar's moving on. Where do the Vols go from here? We talked about this a little bit after the season or during the transfer portal. It was like they were kind of going after some guys. Of course, the Lane Kiffin picture of him going to Knoxville to get Sam Levitt, who was visiting Tennessee, was sort of, Twitter famous for a few hours. It's not that Tennessee maybe wasn't trying or didn't go after guys, but did not take a quarterback in the portal. And now Aguilar officially out. So they're left with what they have on the roster. So where do you think they go?
They may be stuck with what they have on the roster. I mean, there's some jiu-jitsu that teams may be playing. And I know that there's actually, in fact, I think there was today, they're trying to push some emergency stuff because through like NCAA committees, because there's a potential for kids to just drop off and say, to heck with it. Like I'm not going to be a starting wide receiver or whatever. I'm not going to be a starting running back. I'm going to basically quit the team and go off the roster and go into the not go into the portal, but transfer to a new team and then just show up on a roster. So hopefully that stuff doesn't happen, but that is being talked about right now, that could potentially happen. So maybe Tennessee's not done if that loophole is not closed. There was some chatter that Chandler Morris randomly decided to sue again to potentially come back for a 7th year.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe Tennessee might be behind Chandler Morris. Nobody knows. But with where it stands right now, with where we sit, it's George McIntyre, who's going to be a sophomore this year. He was a former 4-star. I think he was the 13th quarterback in the country, 13th overall quarterback in the country in the 2025 class. And I think he was the 3rd overall player in Tennessee. And also coming in very much ballyhooed, very hyped, Faison Brandon, very athletic QB, and Tennessee fans are very excited about him. 5-star, number 3 overall QB in the 2026 class. The question obviously is he ready? And I don't know, right? Some are, some aren't. Very few are ready right away. But he may be so talented that Josh Heupel just kind of has to go with it and say, all right, this is the best we got. Let's see what happens. The other one too, it's they got Ryan Staub.
You're right. So they did get one transfer, not a big name one, but they did bring someone in.
Yeah, Ryan Staub from Colorado. And I was reading, some about that and what folks are thinking about that. We put a Knoxville News piece where they broke down everything about, what this quarterback room looks like post Joey Aguilar. And they were saying that what they believe, what they're hearing around Knoxville, is that he will likely be probably a depth piece. So we'll see.
I mean, no offense to Ryan Staub, but based on his statistics last year, I would hope that is the case. If you're putting much stock in him producing, I don't think things would go well in Knoxville. So yeah, he's played 3 years at Colorado, not very strong statistically, and not somebody that I would be placing any bets on to make a a big impact. This is just interesting because I feel like it's one of those things we don't see that often anymore, right? You kind of mentioned it, like, okay, George McIntyre, 4-star recruit, has been in the system for a little bit. Faison Brandon, young up-and-comer hype guy. And I don't know, 5-10 years ago, this would have not really been that big of a deal. It would have been a big deal from the standpoint of we don't have any experience coming back, but it would have been fairly par for the course for a lot of programs out there, meaning, all right, we just had a guy graduate. Well, next in line is, we got a couple guys battling out that you heard on signing day a few years ago. But it just feels like so many teams these days are shying away from that, and they're going big in the transfer portal, and they're not really relying on dudes that they have on their roster. And it kind of felt like that's what Tennessee would do. But at the same time, under Heupel, they did that with Hooker and then Milton, but obviously Nico, they wanted to go the homegrown route. So I don't necessarily think Tennessee's in a bad spot here. It's just obviously very unknown, right? Because no idea what these guys are capable of. And certainly last year, McIntyre was on the roster and Heupel did not feel comfortable going with him. So maybe he feels differently now. Maybe it's a year later and he's more experienced and he's a guy that they think they can count on. Or maybe Brandon is just him, as the kids say, and Heupel and his staff aren't nervous about it. I don't know. It's just
he's gonna mog McIntyre. Is that what
he's gonna mog him? Yeah. he's gonna deep ball max him or something.
That's a new one. There you go. Deep ball max.
Yeah, deep ball max George McIntyre. But
we don't know what we're talking about. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Judge Moggs Joey Aguilar.
We have to be on Twitter way too much in order to provide you guys with the newsletter and keep up on all the news. And so we get all the crazy stuff going on Twitter as well. All the shrapnel that gets put out there on Twitter. So we take those just for you guys to be able to get out the best newsletter in the SEC, the Morning Biscuits newsletter.
That's right. That's
the
right.
Newsletter that mogs all newsletters.
It mogs everybody. Yeah. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, right? I think, part of the reason we wanted to talk about this is because spring practice is coming up soon for a lot of these schools. And that's kind of the first really it's not going to be much, but, people like us, we're sickos. We're going to be browsing message boards and reading all the reports we can coming out of spring ball about things like this, right? Okay, well, how does Faison Brandon look? How does George McIntyre look? Who's pulling ahead in this race? Because this is something I would imagine will not be settled week one. And probably not. I don't know who Tennessee gets week one. It might be one of those scenarios where you see them both go. I don't know, but I think this is going to be a storyline for a while. And so with spring ball coming up, it's like, okay, yeah, who's got the edge? I mean, if I was betting right now, I'd probably say McIntyre just because he's been there. Now, could be one of those scenarios where McIntyre's the day, week one starter. By week 8, Brandon's in there if things aren't going super hot and they just want to give him a chance. But feels like day one, it's probably McIntyre's to lose, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I that's generally the sense that I get to, and it's just the eye test, right? I mean, McIntyre threw 9 passes last year. Okay, so like we don't know anything. We know nothing about George McIntyre except for what we know from high school and 247 and all that. The little that's leaked out from Tennessee folks talking about how he's looked in practices and such. When the news broke about Aguilar, I texted our friend of the show, Ellie Williamson, who is a reporter for TPL Tennessee, just to get her thoughts and see like what she was thinking. And she said, "Hey, you can quote me on this. One thing I know for sure is that Coach Heupel will compete them all camp until one emerges, and it will be between them. They don't care about media opinions." So they're about to, go in the cone of silence, essentially, other than a couple open practices and such, and they're going to battle it out. And I think she's right. I think it's going to go down to the wire, much like you just said. Expect this one to be a drawn-out competition, probably potentially into the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, and, the beauty about unknowns is could also turn out great, right?
Could, sure.
Our alma mater, 2012, Johnny Football, extremely unknown. Turned out he was pretty darn good.
Kind of like wondering, preseason that year, we're Aggies, right? So we remember I was there at A&M when this was happening, dating myself a little bit. But that was supposed to be Jamil Showers was supposed to be the quarterback. And everybody was pretty much like crowning him like he's going to be the starter, like waited his turn. He's very good. I don't remember what he was, maybe a 4-star quarterback coming in, but he was like the heir apparent, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
after Tannehill, yeah.
Yeah, after Tannehill. And then we get to, I think it was maybe like 2 weeks before the Florida game, and they come out and someone names Johnny Manziel, right? 3-star kid from Kerrville. And everybody's kind of like, yeah, I mean, Kerrville-Tivy, like he was a legend, but that was it's a small school. Like, what are we doing? And sure enough, Cliff Kingsbury, who's really the one that made that decision, knew exactly what he was doing. So, who knows? Could end up like that here. Obviously, both McIntyre and Faison Brandon, bigger recruits than Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel was a high 3-star, originally committed to Oregon and then ended up at A&M. But, very unknown, just like Manziel in this sense. And yeah, maybe one of them emerges and ends up lighting the SEC on fire.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly too, like, I think, well, I totally lost my train of thought. I was going to say, I wouldn't put him in this category yet. But I think Josh Heupel is somewhat close, or at least within reasonable striking distance of kind of the Lane Kiffin conversation that we have about quarterbacks, where it's like, man, I kind of just trust this guy with quarterbacks. I inherently trust Lane. And what I would say about Heupel is I at least trust him enough to get a decent season out of his quarterback, right? We've seen it now a bunch. I mean, he obviously elevated Hendon Hooker to heights he had not seen before. Joe Milton was quite limited, but had a decent year. I mean, he wasn't great, but they did not go off the rails. Like Milton wasn't a terrible player.
Mm-hmm.
Nico, similarly, like, okay, pretty good year. And then again with Aguilar, it's like, okay, yeah, pretty good year. And in all those instances, I look back and I'm like, other than Nico, I guess, but it's like, man, you weren't working with a ton, right? I mean, let's look. Hendon Hooker, I mean, I think he's still in the NFL, but he's a starter. Joe Milton backing up. Aguilar probably undrafted. I'd be shocked if he was drafted. And Nico was, young and then left. So it's like he hasn't been working with the best of tools, and he's done a pretty darn good job of getting, at the very least, average to above average quarterback play. So I kind of think if he's got these guys on his roster, he's had, at least McIntyre for a couple of years. Brandon, of course, somebody that he wanted out of high school. I kind of think you have the floor is pretty high, I guess, right? The floor is a pretty good level of quarterback play in Knoxville. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only caveat to that is except for Nico, those other guys had snaps, right? Like
True.
Booker had snaps at Virginia Tech. Aguilar had plenty of snaps over the course of his career at Appalachian State.
Yeah.
So, and Nico came in green, right? His first season, he was, nobody knew what to expect other than he had played the one game in the bowl game, right? I think it was the Outback Bowl,
Yeah.
where he went off, and so that we got a little glimpse into that, that during his freshman season. But other than that, he was still an unknown and didn't have a whole lot of snaps under his belt. But the others did. And so this is kind of going back to that Nico, which is they're very unknown. These guys are even more unknown than Nico was based on, what Nico did in that bowl game.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I guess we'll see. Again, we'll be keeping an eye out on spring reports when they open up here in a couple of weeks. But let's move on to some other ones because we wanted to extend this conversation mostly about Tennessee, but just out to the rest of the conference because we've got a pretty – I think I'm just excited for 2026 in general, obviously. But I'm excited especially because I think we have a good mix of quarterbacks, meaning – on one hand, there's quite a few incumbent, returning, solidified, high-level starters that have won a lot of football games or at the very least played quite well. There is another group of guys that are presumed starters, and some of whom have a lot of experience, some of whom are, just transferring in, but they're kind of that other wave of like, okay, you're new around here, but we're somewhat familiar with your game. And then there's a handful where it's like, man, I don't know, like we got a full-blown quarterback competition on our hands, I mean, I think there's favorites in all those, of course, or at least leans, but there's quite a few jobs that are open, which is always fun. And it gives us something to talk about during the offseason. So I see you got a graphic here. Did you want to throw that up there and just on the quarterbacks as a whole?
I just want to remind folks, so this is from our friends over. This is from Mike Bratton, SEC Mike, and cousin Shane over on their show. So I just grabbed their graphic because they put together a good one. And a little while back, they did their QB rankings 1.0 during the offseason because obviously you see number 9, Joey Aguilar, right? Joey Aguilar news has come down. So this was from a couple weeks ago, but I just wanted to put this up here to kind of remind folks of kind of who is around. Trinidad Chambliss, right? He got the ruling, so he will be back in uniform for the Rebels next year. Lenora Sellers there at 2. You got Gunnar Stockton. So, those all guys returning. John Mateer returning. Arch Manning returning. Byron Brown, new to Auburn, but returning to Alex Golesh's system, and folks expecting very big things from him this season. So overall, just wanted to be able to flash that up there throughout this segment, just to kind of remind folks of kind of who's returning, who we're expecting at some of these schools. Go down the list there. KJ Jackson was at Arkansas last year. He's expected to be the starter, though we can talk about them in a little bit because that he may not be the starter. We'll see. Austin Mack, same thing. We'll see. Aaron Philo at Florida, unknown. We'll see. So. Just a reminder there for folks that this is kind of what we're looking at. Most of those guys who are returning are those guys in the upper echelon of these quarterbacks, right? Trinidad Chambliss, Lenora Sellers, Stockton, Mateer, Manning, Marcel Reed, Kamario Taylor returning as well, but unknown commodity here as he was not the starter last year. So, I think that's a good spot to start.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for flashing that up, right? So just to recap, you've got incumbent returning starters to their existing team, Stockton at Georgia, Mateer at Oklahoma, Sellers at South Carolina, Reed at A&M, Manning at Texas. Mm-hmm. Then you have guys you brought up, Byron Brown at Auburn. He's expected to start. He's a brand new transfer. Sam Levitt at LSU, expected to start. He's transferred in. Kenny Minchie transfers to Kentucky from Notre Dame, expected to start, but not only is he new to Kentucky, he's also hasn't played. So that's a real kind of wild card. I think Good scouting report. He was a 4-star recruit in the 2024 class. Marcus Freeman had good things to say about him last fall camp when he was battling with CJ Carr, and supposedly that battle lasted, very late into fall camp. Given how CJ Carr played, if that's actually true and not coach speak, that bodes well for Minchie and Kentucky because CJ Carr played great. So if he's in that ballpark, market upgrade for Kentucky based on where they've been over the last few years if he's in Carr's ballpark. And then, you brought up a few other ones that are kind of presumed starters. Kamario Taylor is a recruit, didn't play last year really, but is a 4-star on Mississippi State. Bama's got Austin Mack, the transfer from Washington, who's now been at Bama for 2 years, former 4-star. Keelan Russell, 5-star 2025 class. That's a very clear battle. I think Mississippi State is an open competition as well. I mean, it seems like Taylor's kind of the guy, but also AJ Swan's on the roster. Remember him from days of yore at Vanderbilt, and then I think he was at App State, and then
LSU.
LSU. You're right. Jaden Rashada is also in Starkville now. So I don't know what's going on with that dude. I don't think he played very well this past year at UTEP, but
no, he was at Sacramento State.
Was that where he was? Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Malachi Nelson.
Yeah, Malachi Nelson was UTEP, right?
I can't get these. I can't get all these, transfer quarterbacks that never go anywhere straight. But again, I mean, Rashada, he's been well known for a lot of the off the field exploits, not bad things, NIL things. But I mean, he was a good recruit, or a highly rated recruit. So maybe he could do something. But where do you want to go? Like, what's the most interesting one to you as we sit here on February 25th?
Well, there's a couple that stand out to me. Obviously, the guys who are coming back, that's not super interesting in terms of a QB room or a QB battle that's coming back. There will be ones that I think will be interesting later down the road in the offseason to talk about, and as some of these backup quarterback competitions are kind of shaping up, with the like an Ole Miss or a South Carolina, Texas A&M, who's going to back up Arch at Texas, right? Like those will be fun to talk about a little bit later. But as we sit here in February, I'm looking at a couple of these rooms that I think are going to be fascinating to see who ends up being the starter. One is at LSU. I think obviously it's probably going to be Sam Leavitt, right? Like, okay, we think it's going to be Leavitt. But there have been guys come out of nowhere in the past to take jobs like that you're surprised by. And you've got Hassan Longstreet, who was a freshman last year at the University of Southern California at USC, originally committed to Texas A&M, 4-star in the portal. He's on campus at LSU too. And then you've got Landon Clark, who was a 3-star at Elon, who I think is Lane's kind of Hail Mary of like, maybe this kid's the next Trinidad. We'll see, So I think it's going to be Sam Leavitt. Like, if you're a betting man, it's probably going to be Sam Leavitt, 80%, right? But I'm also like a little bit – I'm not down on Sam Leavitt. I think he's a very good quarterback. But I wanted to see more out of him last year. Like the previous year when they went to the playoff and they played Texas to the wire, they had Cam Scatabo, and that offense relied heavily on Cam Scatabo setting the tone and then opening things up for Sam Leavitt. And without Scatabo last year, it was kind of okay, right? I was a little surprised by him being number 1 overall in the portal, frankly. But even still, Lane Kiffin, quarterback whisperer, got to expect Sam Leavitt to be the starter and expect him to be good. So that's one that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. That's like a bonus one there. But the ones I'm most interested in, to me, it's got to be Alabama, right? That has to be number 1. I mean, Keelan Russell, 5-star quarterback out of Texas. He has been, everybody in Tuscaloosa and around the state of Alabama who's a Tide fan has been watching this kid and thinking like, he's the guy. He's going to be the guy. He's next. But he's got Austin Mack in front of him, and Austin Mack was at Washington with Kalen DeBoer, followed Kalen DeBoer from Washington to Alabama, and now, I mean, he was the one who was the backup last year. Where, he's the one who got the playing time when Ty Simpson went down in the playoff. And so is he the guy going into 2026? I'm fascinated to watch and see if that's the case. And my gut kind of tells me I think it might be Keelan Russell, because I just think he's a stud. So it just depends on how far along Keelan Russell has come and how those coaches feel about how he is in that offense, how much they trust him in that offense versus how much they trust Austin Mack. Because as I just mentioned, Austin Mack is a DeBoer guy, right? Grubb and DeBoer, they know Mack. They knew him at Washington, all that. So it'll be interesting to watch. I think that is the top most interesting QB battle that we've got going on in the SEC.
I second that. I think everything you laid out is spot on. My gut says Russell. I think our friend Jake Thomas is saying the same. But again, we'll learn more about this, or at least hear some tidbits in spring ball, because he didn't really play last year.
Nope.
Neither did Austin Mack. So who knows? You look at high school tape, yeah, Keelan Russell's the man, but we'll see how that translates.
Never
and
know.
As you brought up, Mack is at this point, Mack is old. I mean, I guess he's got to be going into his senior year, and he's stuck around with DeBoer. Like you said, he's a DeBoer guy, so certainly familiar with the system and has stuck around for a reason. He thinks he's got a chance to start, so I would imagine he does. So we'll see how that one shakes out. I think that one will be another close battle, similar to Tennessee. I don't think we're going to hear a lot from DeBoer in terms of tipping his hand where he's going to try to go.
No.
And again, might see them both. I wouldn't shock me to see them both early on.
Nope.
One that I'm interested in, just speaking of kind of unproven, if we're going to say that Tennessee is unproven, is one of Tennessee's biggest rivals, Florida. So Lagway, of course, departs after John Summerall told him he doesn't love ball and kicked him out, crying all the way to Waco. Kidding. Kidding. Don't think that's how it went down.
Man, this guy's a hater.
Yeah, and I like Lagway. If we have any Baylor Bear fans out there, I think he's going to have a good year for y'all. So no hate.
He's the truth. By the way, Boss Man said this last offseason. DJ Lagway is the truth.
Right. I know. If we'd have flashed up your QB rankings last year, we'll have to do one of those lists.
No, I don't think we
at
need
some
to look
point.
back at that.
He'd have been high up there. But anyway, Lagway, of course, out of the picture, right? And they have a redshirt freshman, Tramel Jones, on campus, who has been there as a holdover from Napier, former 3-star recruit in the 25 class. And then they bring in the transfer, Aaron Philo from Georgia Tech, who, of course, is following the offensive coordinator, Buster Faulkner, from Georgia Tech.
Right.
So I get it. There's a lot of familiarity there. Of course, if Faulkner didn't believe in Philo, he wouldn't have vouched for him, presumably, in the transfer portal. And he's the presumed starter. I would be shocked if Jones beats him out, again, given the fact that he left Georgia Tech to come to Florida with his OC, with the understanding that, you're probably better than this guy, or we think you're better than this guy who's on campus. So it's likely Philo, but he's done nothing, right? He's a former 3-star himself, and he's been on campus for 2 years, but he played behind the Iron Man of all Iron Men, Haynes King. I mean, this guy, couldn't get a snap in anywhere because Haynes King's not coming off the field unless he's dead. So
literally dragging him out in a hearse.
Right. So Aaron Philo, I mean, in 2025, he had like 300 he attempted 28 passes.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, he could be good, and there's good signs that he'll be a good player, as I laid out with how this all went down for him to get to Gainesville. But it's interesting to me looking at it where you're like, hey, I hope it works out, because John Summerall, this is your first year, and you got a longer leash than Napier, of course. I mean, it's your first year, but man, Florida fans are tired of losing, dude. Like, if this guy comes out and he's a bum, you're in trouble. You're getting off on the wrong foot right away, because the guy you got didn't pan out.
Well, that's what fascinates me about Florida is exactly what you just said is what as we were prepping for the show and thinking about this, I was looking at Florida and thinking that exact same thing about Florida. It's the honeymoon phase with John Summerall right now, right?
Yeah.
New coach. He's got all these quotes. He's winning formerly Muschamp Coach of the Weeks. Now Mike Leach Coach of the Week awards almost bi-weekly on Biscuits and SEC Live.
Yeah.
And so he's out there in the media. He's got these funny quips, and he seems to be building a roster that fans are excited about to some degree. You have at the most important position on the field, no experience.
Yeah.
None. Okay. So the honeymoon phase could quickly end if they don't start winning games pretty quickly, right? I mean, the whole point of bringing in this new coach was to start winning games. And you only really get at this point, what do we talked about? Signetti, move the timeline up. 2 minutes, Corey.
Yeah.
You get 2 years. Okay. So you get 2 years at this point. And so you better start winning or really making progress now in year one. All right. And you got no experience at the quarterback position. Aaron Philo, right? People are excited about him. People are excited about him at Georgia Tech, like you said. You know, they were excited for him to be the successor to Haynes King. Faulkner leaves. He follows Faulkner to Florida, whatever, right? Well, he could be great. Again, same thing as Tennessee, right? He could do great in camp. He could look really good in spring practice. He could end up being the guy for sure. And like, no problem. Don't worry about it, Florida, right? After the first 4 weeks, we're like, okay, Aaron Philo, you know, top tier of the SEC in quarterbacks. But sitting here in February, it's like, well, I don't know, man. We'll see. And the other piece of this too is if it's shaky, right? Or if we get 6 games, 7 games, 8 games into the year and DJ Lagway is lighting it up in Waco and Baylor is 6-1 or 7-1 and Florida is sitting there at 4-3, you know, or 3-4 or whatever it is, right? That's the fascinating piece to me about this Florida one is that whoever ends up being the starter, most likely Aaron Philo, is going to be compared to DJ Lagway. Whatever's going on in Waco, whatever's going on in Gainesville, that's where the comparison is going to be. And, you know, fair or not, that's going to go up to Summerall too, right? Like if it's not going well, it's going to be, you're kidding me. DJ Lagway, we know he didn't have a great year, but we blame all of that on Billy Napier anyway. Yeah. Okay. This kid is a stud and you had him on campus and you let him walk to Waco and you brought in 2 completely unknowns. You kept Trammell Jones and you brought in Aaron Philo and you just like kind of threw a dart in the dark, you know, trying to throw something to the wall and see if it's stuck when you had DJ Lagway on campus. And so that'll go right back up to John Summerall very quickly, or the opposite. It could go well. Yeah. Maybe it goes well and DJ Lagway is not playing so well in Waco, or maybe he's playing great, right? If Aaron Philo or Trammell Jones ends up playing great at Florida, none of it matters. But if they're not playing very well, it's going to matter.
For sure. It's just a big roll of the dice, like you said. I mean, there's a lot of different outcomes at play here. I did want to flash this up on the screen, though. Our buddy Mike Huseman of Off Season After Dark, thanks for watching, Mike, chimes in. That's a good point. You know, if you're taking over a job, and we can mention a few other jobs here that people are taking over for, but it's a nice ace in your back pocket to be able to pull out as a quarterback and say, yeah, I got this dude behind me that can carry the load for a while. You know, you brought up Sam Levitt and Cam Scatabo and how impactful he was for him. Well, that's, you know, the idea here, right? Is okay. We're saying there's all this pressure on Aaron Philo or Trammell Jones. I think there is, but you know, on a macro level, there is. At a micro level, that pressure can be relieved by a dude who's at your 6 that can carry the rock 25, 30 times a game and get you, you know, 100 to $150. So that should help Philo a lot. But yeah, I think that's a fascinating one to watch because it's a big unknown and it's a big swing, a big gamble in your first year. The other one I'm interested in actually is, I mean, there's a lot that I'm interested in. I don't want to dump on Arkansas, so I'm just going to kind of skip it and say I hope KJ Jackson is great. I'm interested in Mizzou because Austin Simmons transfers there, presumed starter.
Yep.
But if you remember last year, I'm getting my Mizzou quarterbacks mixed up. Who was the guy that broke his leg in the first game that kind of gave Pribula the
Sam Horn?
That's right, and he's gone.
He's gone. Yep.
All
He graduated, I believe, right? He was a baseball player too. So I think he's just like, to heck with football. I'm going to go play baseball, basically.
That's right. So I was looking at Matt Zellers and thinking that was Sam Horn. So Zellers is back. Zollers, whatever you say. Not the same guy.
Zollers did get some playing time when Pribula went down with the broken leg late in the season. Played, okay. Yeah.
Played okay, except against A&M.
Right. Yep.
But, okay, so I'm interested in that one then, maybe not so much in the competition. Not to say Zollers couldn't take a step forward. We still certainly don't know a ton about Austin Simmons, but
he was a 4-star, I believe. Matt Zollers was, so he's a talented kid.
Well, we'll see then. Yeah, because I guess that's what I'm interested to see is like a lot of the unknowns. Like maybe we just don't know anything about Austin Simmons. Came in,
maybe, yeah.
He's sort of like an Aaron Philo in the sense of 3-star out of high school, a lot of hype from his school. He just got like 3 games that he started, whereas Philo hasn't. But he didn't look very good in those 3 games. Almost lost to Kentucky. He threw multiple interceptions, and then he goes down with an injury and loses his job to Chambliss. By all accounts, Simmons is a great dude, great teammate, handled everything this year with class. Salute. More power to him. Can he play? That's what I'm interested to see. Yeah. I think he can.
I think he can.
I like his arm.
Yeah,
I think he can, but we don't really know. And Drink is another one that I kind of trust. Again, he's maybe more that hypo level where it's like, all right, yeah, he's not sending guys to New York, but based on what he's working with, he's done some pretty darn good things with Brady Cook. I mean, Pribula was solid last year. Again, other than like the really, really good defenses that he saw, like your average defenses, Pribula was playing well. And we've seen Drink for years now kind of do that where he gets the most out of his guys. So, again, I think you're going to see above average quarterback play from Simmons this fall. But, again, that's something to look at this spring and fall camp because Simmons is not guaranteed the job. Zollers could figure into this equation. And then, all right, let's say he does get the job. Well, how good is he?
Right. It's hard to – what we saw from Austin Simmons early this year was not great, but it's hard to forget what he did against Georgia 2 years ago when he comes in cold
right.
and rips off a, what was it, like 75-yard drive, and just sticks it right in Kirby Smart's face and, boom, boom, boom. It was like 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, who is this kid, So that's what everybody was thinking coming into this year. Like I remember our friend Stephen Willis, whose channel we're on, right now, was talking about that preseason. I mean, Ole Miss fans were pumped about Austin Simmons. Totally, as they should have been, like rightfully, I mean, I remember watching that drive and being like, I mean, I heard a little bit about this kid, right? We follow this stuff, but that was unbelievable. That was incredible what that kid just did. But then, early this year, it was shaky. And then Trinidad Chambliss just comes in and lights the world on fire. It's like, okay, well, he's the guy, right? So I am interested to see what happens there. So I did look it up. Zollers, I was right. He's a 4-star QB. He was the number 9 QB in the 2025 class, number 2 player in Pennsylvania. So and he's a player, right? Like he didn't have enough experience last year. He got some under his belt, didn't play great in some games, played okay, overall.
Yeah.
But he'll be in the mix. Like, don't count him out. Austin Simmons is a talent, but I don't think we've seen enough from him to say he's for sure the guy. Zollers will be in this mix. Also, Nick Evers from UConn. He played well. He transferred in to Missouri this year as well. So
he did.
I think it's going to be a 3-horse race, going into the fall. Like you said, you mentioned Drink and just in terms of just trusting him at this point. And I agree with that. You look back, let's look at his track record at Mizzou. If you remember, Brady Cook coming into the year, he was potentially going to start. I think he started a couple games to end that year. I think that was in, what was that? That was in 23, I think. 22, because he started 23, 24.
Yeah.
So late 22, he started a couple games and he looked pretty good, and then he played the bowl game and it was so-so, and everybody's kind of like, oh, maybe we'll see. I don't know if Brady Cook's going to be the starter. They brought in Jake Garcia from Miami, who was a pretty big recruit years ago. And so they brought in Jake Garcia to compete with him. Brady Cook ends up beating him out. And Brady Cook still at that point, he had 5 or 6 games of, maybe 4 or 5 games under his belt of snaps, but still pretty inexperienced overall, right? And so you had that, then you had Brady Cook, and then you had Pribula, who had basically no experience at Penn State.
Yeah.
And now we're going into another year where there's going to be not much experience with whoever is going to be the starter, except for Evers, right? If it's Evers, he's got plenty of snaps at UConn. But other than Evers, which is, the 2 horses that are expected to be ahead of Evers, not a whole lot of snaps under their belt. But with Drink's track record, with guys who don't have a lot of snaps under their belt and developing them into guys who are winning 9, 10, 11 games a year, I still have to feel pretty confident with not only with what Drink does with guys who don't have a lot of experience, doesn't matter. Seems like he develops them, gets them into the offense, and they're able to learn it and pick it up very quickly. But then 2, where you're at with the talent level. Austin Simmons, a lot of excitement at Ole Miss, didn't exactly go his way, and then he just gets beat by, something that you can't really explain or could have predicted with Trinidad Chambliss. And then Zollers, who's a 4-star, former number 2 player in the state of Pennsylvania a couple years ago. So got to be excited with, what Drink is able to do no matter what he has at quarterback, and then 2, where the talent level is overall in the QB room at Mizzou.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, any other QB rooms you wanted to hit on? We kind of mentioned Arkansas and KJ Jackson. I mean, again, I don't want to be too down on them. I'm struggling to see a lot of hope there with kind of that new regime, and they brought in the quarterback from Memphis, but I don't know. They weren't very good this year, and I think Taylor Green was covering up a lot of holes, and I don't know that.
Which is saying a lot because they were 2-10. So
I know.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to put this on KJ Jackson, whoever the quarterback is, right? There's a lot of holes. So it's not an indictment on them. I struggle to see that one going super well, but I've been wrong before. So clip this if you'd like, Arkansas fans. But the only one that we didn't really talk about then otherwise would be Vandy, which sounds like they're just going to go with Jared Curtis. And okay, great. I mean, what else do you do if you're Vandy? You get the number 1 QB in the country. Of course he's starting his freshman year, right?
Yeah, it's just a Vandy thing, I guess. You know what I mean? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. We've touched on it in some previous shows recently where when we talked about the transfer portal, right, and kind of like where things ended up post-transfer portal, I was a little surprised at how good of a season Vandy had and how little momentum I felt like there was in recruiting. And I want to caveat that by saying I understand that Clark Lee and his staff are not just going after stars, right? They have a very specific recruiting, the way that they do things at Vanderbilt, because they have to identify diamonds in the rough. They always have had to do that at Vanderbilt, or try to do that. Clark Lee and his staff have done that better than anybody else in the country. So, but even still, once you get to a certain point, I was feeling like, okay, now let's make a jump. They got Jared Curtis. Okay, I understand that 5-star kid. Obviously, that's making a big jump at QB in the recruiting game. But other than that, in terms of like the ranking and the recruiting rankings and the ranking and the transfer portal ranking, was a little surprised at where they ended up. So, Vandy's still building at the end of the day, right? 2 two pretty good years, one 6-6. The other one, you're on the verge of the playoff 10-2. Clark Lee, I know with his process and how they do things there, he's confident in what they're going to be able to do no matter who's on the roster. And now you've got a Jared Curtis there. Yeah, it's Jared Curtis. I feel like it's pretty obvious who it's going to be. Blaze Berlowitz, 4th year scholarship QB, right? You said he could compete, so we'll see there. But I think it's going to be Jared Curtis. I think it's pretty obvious. So that's one I didn't really highlight for that reason. But I did highlight Mississippi State because I do think that one's interesting. Kamario Taylor, 4-star recruit in the 25 class. He seems like the obvious heir apparent there. I think we'll have to have Rivers Huey on, our friend, to discuss a little bit what does that situation look like as we progress here throughout the offseason. AJ Swan, I don't really think he's going to play much of a factor here. He got benched at App State. He played 5 games at App State. I think he's going to be backup or maybe 3rd string here. And then Jaden Rashada, I don't know, man. Big recruit, Florida, that whole thing. I think he's suing Florida now.
I think that's done. I think he got some settlement out of it.
You're right. He did get a settlement. So, that's odd. Georgia doesn't work out. Sac State, he doesn't play very well. I don't know. Maybe he figures it out at Mississippi State finally. But odds-on favorite there, Kamario Taylor. But it is just interesting because Taylor really doesn't have a lot of experience, whereas even though the other guys haven't played that well at their other schools, they have a lot more snaps and a lot more experience under their belt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at it. Rashada is not even including Florida. I mean, this is his 4th school. Arizona State, Georgia, Sac State, Mississippi State. So,
right.
Yeah, that just doesn't bode very well. Right. Mike had a question for us. Back up to Arch. I was just looking at this. They pulled the Horns, pulled a kid out of the portal, MJ Morris, who's been around the block for a while, NC State to Maryland to Coastal Carolina.
Okay.
So older guy, depth piece, could factor in. And then they've got a couple of younger recruits. The most recent one, Dia Bell, which I believe is Raja Bell's child, for those of you that watched 2004 Phoenix Suns basketball.
Yeah.
Raja Bell has a son now who goes to Texas. He was a 4-star. Good recruit, big time recruit. He'll be a true freshman, and then they have a 4-star on the roster who is in last year's class, so he'll be a sophomore, redshirt freshman. Carl Lacey. So
KJ, who's they? No, you're right. I'm just saying they also call him KJ. I don't know how that makes sense, but
yeah, I'm just looking at his 247 here. He's a 4-star. Right. Yeah. Carl Lacey, KJ, sure. So my guess is, and this is a great comment, the Sun Belt Jaden Rashad. My guess is, the backup will probably be Morris, at least early on. And then if they get, if Sark gets a little more comfortable, obviously Lacey and or Bell would have more upside and would probably be a guy they would turn to. But certainly no experience back there, as is kind of become custom for anybody, as we're talking about, with the transfer portal. If you got a backup with experience, that's a pretty luxurious thing to have on your roster.
Yeah, the other one, don't count him out, is Matthew Caldwell. He was at Troy. I think he's still there. I'm pretty sure. I'm 90% sure. He was the backup last year. He's the one who threw the touchdown at Mississippi State late in the game when Arch went out with an injury, and he threw a dime, absolute dime, to the corner of the end zone. So anyway, I think he's a redshirt senior this year. Pretty sure he's back. So anyway, he'll be in the mix. He could get beaten out by one of these kids who's, super talented behind him. Like you mentioned, Dia Bell, KJ Lacey, there's some definite talent behind Caldwell, but he was the backup last year. And when he played well. So, could be tough to supplant him, especially for the fact that those guys are young, and Caldwell has, I think,
he's old.
This will be his third year in the offense because he transferred from Troy in late 2023, in December 23. So he was at Texas for 24 last year, and this will be his third year in the offense with Sark. So anyway,
he'll be the backup then for sure.
What's that?
He'll be the backup then for sure. Your first line at the.
You would think, yeah, exactly. Unless like somebody just blows it out of the water, whether it's KJ Lacey or Diabell. And, you might see Sark do the stuff that everybody does now, which is Matthew Caldwell or KJ Lacey. I could see that happening. But my guess is with that much experience that Caldwell is still going to be the backup to Arch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're right at about an hour, so let's close it out. We talked a lot about the quarterback rooms. So it was a fun discussion. Excited to learn as much as we can during spring practice, and then I'm sure we'll probably have a very similar conversation like this come June, let's say, as we're kind of gearing up for fall camp and see what we think the QB rooms are shaking out like. But we got 2 segments here to close it out. Did we get a Leach Coach of the Weekend?
I don't think we did. So I think we can play the one next week. We got a pretty good idea of what it would have been, but we just didn't have time to get it done today.
Yeah, so typically we'd do the Leach Coach of the Week, but that will be on hold this week as we were bogged down with our regular jobs. So like and subscribe so we don't have to do our regular jobs anymore, and we can do this full time and have fun.
Right. Tell your friends.
And, yeah, make the show better. So we'll go right to the Biscuit of the Week. I don't know if he's watching tonight. I haven't seen him comment. So, Rick, if you're out there, thank you for watching. If you're not, hopefully you catch us on replay because we're shouting you out. As usual, our friend, the Biscuit of the Week. We love biscuits here at Biscuits and SEC. Obviously, it's in the name. We are the #1 podcast, according to Apple, Spotify, anyone you ask. Everyone's saying it. We're the #1 podcast for people who love SEC football and biscuits. Important caveat there. So our good friend here, Rick, shout out Rick. He is watching. Appreciate you.
All right.
Sends us a ton of biscuits. If you want to be featured, contact at biscuitsandsec.com is our email, or shoot us a DM on any social media platform. We're not hard to find, and we'd be happy to feature your biscuit on here as we do each week. Could be homemade, could be somewhere you go in a restaurant, but our friend Captain Biscuit, Rick, sent us one that we wanted to feature, and it looks pretty dang good. I don't know if you saw this come through or have seen the graphic here, but Rick,
oh baby,
went to Biscuit Belly, which is a great name, in Huntsville, Alabama, and Rick got the hot brown, and his wife, Bonnie, got the boozy bird. So I think the boozy bird is the big one on the right with that massive fried chicken something. Like a half of the bird looks like it got fried in one piece over there, and that looks like some syrup to dump on it. And then the hot brown just looks like some biscuits and gravy with something on there, and then obviously bacon to cover it up. So this looks really, really good. This is one of our better submissions in a while. That fried chicken just looks phenomenal, and the biscuits and gravy, you can't go wrong.
The entire thing, I'm just at a loss for words. Rick, you outdid yourself here, my friend, Captain Biscuit. Wow, both of these look awesome. Even the mug, like the mug and the branding here of Biscuit Belly, I am all in on Biscuit Belly. I am going to have to find myself out in Huntsville pretty soon to drop into Biscuit Belly. I mean, that biscuit is perfectly golden on the top. You got that massive fillet, the syrup to drop on top of it there. And then, on the left there, the bacon, gravy, cheese or something maybe. I don't know. I'm all in for all of it. I'm going to eat a couple different plates, try it all there at Biscuit Belly, and I think I'd be fat as a tick and happy as a clam.
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking at their website. They actually, they are a chain, and
Really?
there's a couple locations in Houston. So you'd have
Wow.
to.
All right.
Dang, even they're spiking their syrup down there
Oh,
too. Saying this, so
man.
that's why it's the boozy bird. It's the giant fried chicken, and then some boozed up syrup. Incredible stuff. But yeah, they're looks like they're in the southeast, Atlanta, or excuse me, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, some in Kentucky, North Carolina. Got a couple in Ohio.
Okay.
Then South Carolina, Texas, and some in Virginia. So they're around. Unfortunately, nothing near Colorado. So I'm gonna have to do something about that.
Amen, Mike.
Living
I feed
situation.
that syrup into my veins. That's good syrup for hair of the dog, my man. After a night out, let's get hair of the dog, inject that syrup directly into my arteries.
Love it. Love it. Well, man, I'm excited. Yeah, now that I know, I mean, they've got a bunch of locations. So next time I find myself near a Biscuit Belly, I'm going to be going, and I'm going to be thinking of Rick and Bonnie for sharing this, because that looks fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate your always sharing your biscuits with us. It's awesome. We love looking at them and shouting you out on the show. So keep it up.
No doubt about it.
So that will do it for this week. We'll be back next Wednesday, which I believe, oh yeah, because February is super short. So that'll be in March, which is nuts.
Can't believe March. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll hard be March, but we'll be back next Wednesday, same time, same place. You know where to find us. Thank you all for watching. Actually, I had a bigger crew this week than we had the last few, thanks to the StreamYard Twitter or X issue that's going on. But we had a good crowd tonight.
I think it got fixed. I think everybody's back. We were on Steven's feed tonight, so good to see you all again. Sorry for the issues that StreamYard had the past couple of weeks getting it on everybody's feed, but I think we're back. We've got our regular audience, and folks who I know are checking in and tuning in for the first time. So for all of you who are, welcome to Biscuits and SEC Live. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Show 74, man. We've been doing this for a year plus now. It's been a lot of fun, and we're going to continue to grow the show. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on social media. You can follow us across all social media channels at Biscuits and SEC, and we're having a lot of fun. We absolutely love doing it. Love Southern culture. Love SEC football and SEC athletics and all the rest of it. So we really appreciate all of you joining us every Wednesday night.
Absolutely. Tell your friends, and we'll see y'all next week. Appreciate y'all.